In the far edge of the galaxy, where the stars grew thin and silence covered the dark, there drifted a ship. It was no ordinary ship, and it did not belong to any known race. It was enormous, a shadow among shadows, built of black metal that seemed to drink the light around it. The ship was so vast that smaller craft looked like insects beside it, and yet, it did not move, it did not speak, and it did not answer any call. For centuries it had been there, waiting, watching, a riddle in the dark. Many alien races had tried to approach this vessel. Some came with weapons, thinking they could break into it and claim its secrets. Others came with gifts, hoping to earn its trust. And some came simply out of curiosity, driven by the hunger for knowledge. But the result was always the same. The ship rejected them. The doors never opened. The surface never cracked. Sometimes, the ones who tried to enter were destroyed by strange bursts of light, as if the ship defended itself. Sometimes, nothing at all happened, and the visitors were left drifting in shame. No alien had ever stepped inside. The story of the ship grew across the stars. It became legend. Entire generations told their children that the ship was alive, that it was waiting for something, or someone. But no one knew what. Some believed it was the last relic of a great ancient race, a race that had vanished before the galaxy was young. Others thought it was a trap, a weapon built to lure the greedy and the curious. And yet, despite the danger, ships kept coming. Civilizations sent their bravest and their brightest, desperate to be the first to uncover the truth. And still, the Starship rejected them all. Over time, it became known by many names: the Silent Sentinel, the Guardian of the Void, the Dead Ship. But one name remained the most feared and the most respected: the ship that refused all life. And so, the mystery remained unsolved. Until the humans came. At first, no one believed the humans would dare. Humanity was still young compared to the ancient alien powers. They were explorers, yes, but they were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most intelligent. Other races laughed when they heard of it. The humans will try, they said, but they will fail, just like the rest. And yet, the humans came anyway. They were driven not only by curiosity, but by something deeper, something harder to explain. It was not greed, nor hunger for power. It was a feeling that had guided them since the first time they looked at the night sky on their home world. A desire to know, to understand, to seek the truth even when the truth was dangerous. When the human ship approached the silent giant, there was a strange silence in the galaxy. Other races watched from afar. Some expected the humans to be destroyed. Some expected nothing at all. But everyone waited, because deep down, even the most skeptical wanted to know if the great ship would respond. The human crew stared at it through their viewports. It was the largest object they had ever seen up close, stretching farther than their eyes could follow. It did not shine. It did not reflect. It simply absorbed. The captain of the human vessel stood at the front, his face calm but his heart beating fast. For years he had studied the stories. For years he had dreamed of standing here, before this dark monument. And now he was here, and he felt small, smaller than he had ever felt in his life. The crew whispered among themselves. Some felt fear. Some felt awe. And some felt both. None of them could predict what would happen next. Then, for the first time in centuries, the alien ship stirred. Its surface rippled like water touched by wind. Lines of pale light ran across its black skin, pulsing, alive. The humans froze. Never before had it responded to anyone. The lights grew brighter, forming shapes, patterns, almost like eyes opening after a long sleep. The crew held their breath. The captain whispered, "It sees us." Outside, alien observers panicked. From hidden outposts and cloaked ships, they saw what was happening, and they could not believe it. The Silent Sentinel, the ship that refused all life, was waking, and it was waking for humans. Messages raced across the galaxy. Entire empires shook with disbelief. The impossible had happened. The ship that had rejected everyone else was moving, and the only question left was why. What made humans different? What had it seen in them that it had never seen in countless others? The answer was hidden inside the ship, in the endless corridors that no alien had ever walked. And now, at last, those doors were beginning to open. The humans could not believe what they were seeing. The great alien starship, silent for centuries, was glowing with soft lines of light. It was as if the ship had been asleep all this time and had suddenly woken up at the presence of the human vessel. The captain stood at the command deck, staring in silence, his crew waiting for his word. No alien had ever caused such a reaction. No one had ever seen the ship stir, not even a little, and yet now it moved as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. The captain's voice was calm, but there was weight in his words when he said, "Prepare a landing team." His officers turned to him in shock. "Sir," one of them said, "you can't be serious. No one has ever stepped inside that thing. Entire races have failed." The captain nodded slowly. "Yes. But something tells me this ship is giving us permission. We cannot ignore this. If we do not go now, we may never get another chance." The crew exchanged nervous looks. They knew he was right, but fear hung heavy in the air. Outside, alien watchers grew restless. Hidden probes, cloaked fleets, and listening stations picked up every detail. They had laughed at the humans before, calling them weak and unworthy. But now the laughter had stopped. Instead, there was silence, and in that silence, a deep unease. If the humans succeeded, everything in the galaxy would change. The humans had no idea how many eyes were watching them. To the crew inside the human vessel, it felt as if only they and the great ship existed, floating alone in the void. The captain selected a small team. He chose carefully. People who were brave, people who were curious, and above all, people he trusted. He did not choose the strongest or the most aggressive. Instead, he chose those who carried compassion in their hearts. When the shuttle left their ship and moved toward the massive alien vessel, time itself seemed to hold its breath. The glow on the starship's surface grew stronger. The vast black doors, taller than mountains, began to tremble. Then, slowly they opened. The sound of metal grinding echoed across the void, though no air carried the noise. The crew felt the vibration in their bones. No alien had ever seen these doors open before. And yet, for humanity, they opened wide. The shuttle drifted forward into the shadow of the doorway. Beyond lay only darkness, thick and endless. One of the humans whispered, "It feels like we are entering the mouth of a giant beast." Another answered, "Then let us pray it does not bite." The shuttle crossed the threshold, and the doors closed behind them, sealing them inside. On the other side, alien observers erupted in panic. Messages flew across the stars. "The humans have entered. The doors have opened for them." Some empires held emergency councils, fearing that if the humans gained control of this mysterious ship, the balance of power would shatter. Others prepared fleets, ready to strike if the humans succeeded. But none of that mattered to the landing team now. Inside, they were surrounded by silence. The darkness was not empty. It was alive. Faint lights glowed on the walls, pulsing like veins filled with light instead of blood. The ship felt less like a machine and more like a living creature. The air was heavy but breathable, as if the ship had adjusted itself for their arrival. The humans stepped out of the shuttle with trembling steps. The captain moved first, his boots echoing against the strange floor. He looked around with awe and fear. "This ship has been waiting," he whispered. His words were soft, but everyone heard them. The deeper they moved, the stronger the glow became, guiding them like a path. The ship was not just allowing them inside, it was leading them somewhere. Every sound they made seemed too loud, every breath too heavy. Yet none of them turned back. The captain kept walking, his hand brushing against the wall. The surface was warm, almost like skin. He pulled back quickly, unsettled. The others looked to him for guidance. "Do not fear it," he said, though his own voice shook slightly. "It is alive, but it has not harmed us. Trust it, for now." Each step carried them further into the unknown. In the distance, The glow grew brighter, almost like a beating heart. It pulsed slowly, rhythmically, as though the ship itself was alive and waiting for them at its core. And though none of them spoke it aloud, they all shared the same thought. Why had this ship rejected countless alien races, yet chosen humanity? What did it see in them that was different? No one had the answer. Not yet. But they would soon discover it, for the heart of the ship was calling, and it would not be ignored. The humans followed the glowing path deeper into the alien ship, their footsteps echoing softly on the strange floor. The air was thick but still breathable, and every breath carried the taste of metal and something older, something no words could describe. None of them dared to speak too loudly, for it felt like the ship itself was listening. The captain walked at the front, his eyes fixed on the pulsing lights that guided them forward. Behind him the crew moved carefully, some clutching their tools, others gripping their weapons, though none truly believed weapons would help against something this vast. The path seemed endless and yet alive, every surface shifting faintly as though the ship was aware of their presence. Suddenly the lights stopped moving forward and began to swirl in a circle around a wide chamber. The crew entered slowly, their voices hushed in awe. The chamber was massive, larger than any cathedral on Earth, with a ceiling so high it vanished into shadows. In the center hovered a sphere of light, glowing softly, pulsing with the same rhythm as the walls. The captain took a step closer, his heart racing. "This is it," he whispered. "The heart of the ship." At that moment the light changed. It flared brighter, filling the room with brilliance that forced the humans to shield their eyes. Then a voice spoke. It was not a sound carried by air, but a voice that appeared inside their minds. It was calm, ancient, and filled with authority. "All others failed. You remain." The humans froze in shock. The voice spoke in their own language, clear and perfect, though none of them had ever taught it. The captain swallowed and stepped forward. "Who are you?" he asked aloud, though he was not sure if the ship even needed sound to hear him. The voice answered, "I am the vessel. I was built to serve. I was built to wait. I was built to choose." The crew looked at one another, their faces pale. The ship was alive. It was not just a machine. It was something more, something created with purpose beyond their understanding. The captain steadied himself. "Why us? Why open for humans when you rejected every alien before us?" The sphere pulsed, and the voice grew deeper. "Because you are not like them. They came with greed. They came with hunger. They came with domination in their hearts. They failed my tests before they even began. But you are different." The humans exchanged glances. They did not feel different. They were explorers, yes, but also flawed, uncertain, even afraid. Yet the ship saw something in them that others did not. One of the younger crew members, trembling, asked, "What do you want from us?" For a long moment the chamber was silent, only the soft thrum of the living walls filling the space. Then the voice replied, "I want you to prove your worth. You must face what others could not. If you succeed, I will bind with you. If you fail, you will never leave." The humans felt the weight of those words like a stone on their chests. There would be no easy path out. Already the door they had entered through was gone, sealed by the living walls. They were trapped until they completed whatever trial the ship intended. The captain drew in a slow breath. "We accept," he said firmly, though doubt clawed at his heart. The sphere pulsed once more, brighter than before, and suddenly the chamber shifted. The floor rippled like water, and the humans staggered as the world around them changed. The walls melted into new shapes, twisting into a labyrinth of corridors stretching into darkness. The crew gasped in shock, realizing that the ship itself was alive and could change its form at will. The voice spoke again, calm but unyielding. "The test begins now." Fear rose among the humans, but the captain lifted his hand, signaling them to stay calm. "We will go forward," he said. He looked at his people, seeing their fear but also their courage. "We came here to discover the truth. We will not turn back now." Step by step they moved into the labyrinth, knowing that every choice they made could mean the difference between survival and death. Behind them the sphere faded, its light dimming, leaving only the pulsing glow of the walls to guide them. Outside the ship, alien eyes widened in disbelief as the humans were tested. No race before had ever made it this far. The doors had never opened. The voice had never spoken. But for humans, the impossible had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The humans pressed deeper into the labyrinth as the walls shifted silently around them, glowing faintly with that same strange pulse like the slow beat of a heart. Every corridor looked the same, yet the ship seemed to guide them forward, closing paths behind and opening new ones ahead, as if it wanted them to move in one direction only. The air was warmer now, filled with a low hum that vibrated in their bones, and each step carried both dread and wonder. The captain walked in silence, his eyes sharp, though he could feel the weight of fear pressing against his crew. None of them had ever faced anything like this, and though they carried weapons at their sides, they all knew that weapons were useless in a place that lived and breathed. Suddenly the glow of the walls grew brighter, and the crew entered a chamber far larger than the last, a circular space with walls that seemed to breathe. Strange symbols burned across the surface, moving like rivers of light, shifting and twisting into patterns too complex for human minds to follow. In the center of the chamber stood a structure that looked like a throne, but it was empty, as if waiting. The humans approached slowly, their steps echoing, when the voice returned, echoing in their minds. "You are within me. You are within my memory. All who entered before you failed here. They could not endure." The words carried no anger, only cold fact, yet they struck fear into every heart. The captain clenched his fists and answered, "Then tell us what we must face." The walls shivered, as if amused. "You must face yourselves." At once the chamber darkened, the lights dimming until only shadows remained. Out of the darkness shapes appeared, forming from thin air, twisting into figures that made the humans freeze in shock. Before each crew member stood a reflection of themselves, not perfect copies but darker, colder versions, eyes glowing faintly as if filled with fire. The crew gasped, some stepping back, but their reflections moved forward in perfect silence. The captain's own double stood tall, its face hard, its gaze filled with judgment. "What is this?" one crew member cried out. The voice of the ship replied, "This is the truth of your nature. Every choice you fear, every weakness you deny, you must face it, or you will fall as the others fell." The dark reflections began to move closer. One soldier raised his weapon in panic, firing a burst of energy, but the shot passed through his double like smoke. The reflection smiled, cruel and cold, and whispered words only the soldier could hear, words that cut deeper than any blade. The humans realized then that this was no physical trial. This was a test of spirit, a test of heart. The captain held his ground as his own reflection spoke, its voice sharp and cruel. "You are not worthy of command. You doubt yourself with every breath. You fear failure more than death." The captain's chest tightened, but he did not look away. "Yes," he said softly, "I do fear failure. I fear it every day. But fear does not stop me. It reminds me why I must lead, why I must protect them." The reflection hesitated, its cruel smile faltering, and then it dissolved into nothing, leaving the captain standing alone. Around the chamber, the other crew members fought their battles, not with weapons but with truth. A young engineer trembled as her reflection mocked her mistakes, reminding her of every system she had ever broken, every error she had made. She cried, but then she lifted her chin and whispered, "I learn from mistakes. They do not define me. They make me stronger." Her reflection vanished like smoke in the wind. One by one the crew faced themselves. Some fell to their knees, overwhelmed by guilt and doubt, but the others lifted them up, helping them to stand, reminding them they were not alone. Together they resisted, together they endured. At last the chamber brightened once more, the dark reflections gone, the walls glowing brighter than before. The voice of the ship spoke again, slower now, almost thoughtful. "Interesting. You are unlike the others. They could not face themselves. They lied, they broke, they fought only with hate. But you, You choose to endure together. Perhaps you are worthy. The humans looked at one another, sweat on their brows, fear still in their eyes, but also relief. They had survived the first true trial. The captain straightened his back, looking into the glowing walls. "What comes next?" he asked, his voice firm. The walls pulsed with light, a deep sound filling the chamber like distant thunder. "Next," the ship said, "you must prove not only your truth but your mercy." And with those words the chamber shifted again, the throne sinking into the floor, the walls opening into new passages that stretched into blinding light. The crew braced themselves, knowing that whatever waited ahead would be more dangerous than what they had just faced, but also knowing that they had come too far to turn back. Together they stepped forward, deeper into the heart of the living ship, unaware that the greatest revelation of all was still to come. The humans stepped into the blinding light and shielded their eyes as the chamber reshaped itself once more, folding and stretching like a living dream until it became something new. When the light faded, they found themselves standing on a platform that hovered above an endless abyss, a void so deep it swallowed all sound. Across the platform stood 3 pathways, each one glowing with faint colors, red, blue, and white. The captain studied them, his jaw tight, while the voice of the ship filled their minds again. "This is the trial of worthiness. Here you must choose power, knowledge, or compassion. Only one path may be taken. The others will close forever." The crew exchanged nervous glances. Red pulsed with violent energy, promising strength. Blue shimmered with symbols, promising wisdom and secrets. White glowed softly, promising nothing but peace. One soldier whispered, "We should take power. If we control this ship, no one can challenge us." An engineer countered, "No, knowledge is the answer. Think of what we could learn, what humanity could achieve." But the captain stood silently, staring at the white path, his thoughts heavy. "Compassion," he muttered under his breath. The soldier frowned. "Compassion? That's weakness. We need strength." The captain turned to him, his eyes steady. "Compassion is not weakness. It is the hardest choice, the one others could not make. Every race before us sought power or knowledge. That is why they failed." The crew fell silent as his words sank in. The voice of the ship responded, "You understand." At once the red and blue paths crumbled away into the abyss, leaving only the white path shining before them. The humans moved forward together, their steps cautious but united. As they walked, the platform behind them dissolved, leaving only the narrow path ahead. There was no turning back. The path carried them to another chamber, smaller and darker, where cages appeared from the floor. Inside the cages were figures, alien in shape and form, each one suffering in silence. Some looked like reptilian beings, others like insectoid creatures, and some were species the humans did not even recognize. Their eyes pleaded, their bodies weak. The ship's voice echoed once more. "These are the last prisoners of those who came before. They failed, and they were trapped within me. Now you must decide. Free them, or leave them. If you free them, you risk your own survival. If you leave them, you preserve your safety. Choose wisely." The crew felt the weight of the decision pressing on their hearts. The soldier muttered, "We don't know what these things are. They could attack us the moment we open the cages." The engineer said softly, "But if we leave them, they will die. Can we carry that guilt?" Silence filled the chamber. The captain walked forward, standing between the cages. He looked into the eyes of the prisoners and saw fear, pain, and desperation. He also saw himself reflected there, because once, long ago, humans too had been weak, lost, and desperate. Slowly, he said, "We will free them." The soldier shouted in disbelief, "Captain, that's madness. They could kill us." The captain's voice was calm but firm. "If compassion is our worthiness, then we must show it now. If this ship has truly chosen us, then we cannot abandon them." One by one the cages dissolved, releasing the prisoners. Some collapsed to the ground, too weak to move. Others stared in confusion at their saviors. But none attacked. Instead, A silence heavier than stone filled the chamber, broken only by the voice of the ship. You chose mercy. Others chose fear. Others chose greed. Others chose power. That is why they failed. But you are different. The chamber began to glow brighter, the light surrounding the humans and the freed prisoners alike. This is worthiness, the ship said. To risk yourselves not for gain, but for others. The humans stood together, their fear fading into something stronger, pride, hope, and unity. For the first time, they began to understand why the ship had waited for them, why it had rejected every alien race before. The ship did not want conquerors. It did not want masters. It wanted guardians. The captain placed a hand on his chest and bowed his head. We are ready, he said softly. The light swelled brighter still, and the floor beneath them shifted once more, carrying them deeper into the heart of the vessel. Behind them, the prisoners faded into the walls, their images dissolving like mist, as if the ship had only created them as illusions to test the humans' hearts. The crew looked around, realizing they had not freed real creatures but had passed a test of mercy. Still, the choice they made had been true, and the ship had seen it. The captain turned to his people, his face calm and certain. This was only one trial. The hardest may yet come. But whatever lies ahead, we face it together. The path stretched forward, glowing brighter than ever before, and the humans stepped onto it without hesitation, unaware that the greatest revelation of the ship's purpose was waiting just beyond the next chamber. The humans walked forward along the glowing path, their hearts heavy with the weight of the trials they had faced, yet stronger for having endured them. The walls pulsed gently, no longer cold and menacing but steady, almost welcoming, as if the ship itself was pleased with their choices. The captain kept his gaze ahead, knowing that the end was near, and his crew followed in silence, each of them lost in thought about what they had just proven. At last the corridor widened, opening into a chamber unlike any they had seen before. The walls here were smooth and shining, alive with streams of light that flowed like rivers, converging at a single point in the center of the room. There, suspended in midair, was a great crystalline core, glowing brighter than anything they had witnessed inside the vessel. The moment they entered, the voice of the ship returned, not as a whisper but as a thunder that filled their minds and their very bones. You have reached the heart. Few have come this far. None have passed. You stand where the ancient ones once stood. The crew froze, their eyes fixed on the core, realizing that this was not simply the center of the ship, it was its soul. The captain took a step forward and spoke, his voice respectful. Tell us the truth. What are you? Why do you test us? Why choose us now? The chamber trembled as the core pulsed with light, and the voice replied, slow and deliberate. I was not made by your kind. I was not made by those who walk this galaxy now. I was built by the first ones, a race long gone, a race that shaped the stars themselves. Their time ended, but they left me behind. My purpose was to wait, to watch, and to choose a successor. Not a master, but a guardian. Not one who craved power, but one who would protect life. The words struck deep into the humans, and they realized that the ship had never been a weapon, nor a treasure chest of secrets. It was a legacy, a responsibility, and it had searched for ages to find those who could bear it. The captain's voice was quiet when he asked, why reject the others? There were races stronger than us, wiser than us, older than us. Why not them? The core pulsed again, and the answer came like a cold wind. Because they were blinded by themselves. They saw me as a tool for conquest, a prize for greed, a throne for power. They sought only to dominate, never to serve. They failed before their trials even began, for their hearts were already corrupted. But you came with questions, not demands. You came with fear, yet still you walked forward. You chose mercy over safety. You faced truth instead of lies. That is why I opened to you. The chamber filled with silence as the humans absorbed the weight of these words. They were not chosen because they were the greatest, but because they were willing to be more than themselves. The young engineer whispered, then, we are the guardians now? The voice answered, softer now, almost gentle. If you accept. But know this, the choice is not without cost. To bind with me is to carry a burden greater than you can imagine. You will hold knowledge that can shape worlds. You will hold power that can destroy civilizations. You must never use it for conquest, never for greed, never for pride. If you betray this duty, I will turn against you as I turned against the others. The captain's throat tightened as he heard these words. He looked back at his crew, their faces pale, their eyes filled with both fear and wonder. They had dreamed of finding the truth, but none of them had expected this, a responsibility that could change the future of humanity forever. The soldier, once eager for power, now spoke softly, his voice trembling. If we take this, we change everything. Every empire will come for us. Every race will see us as a threat. The captain nodded. Yes. But if we refuse, we walk away and leave this ship waiting for another. And what if the next ones are not like us? What if they choose greed? What if they choose conquest? Then the galaxy will fall. The chamber hummed as if listening to their debate, the core pulsing steadily, patient, waiting for their answer. At last the captain lifted his head, his eyes burning with determination. We accept, he said. Not for conquest, not for power, but for duty. If we are to be your guardians, then we will guard with honor. The core blazed with brilliant light, flooding the chamber, flooding their minds, filling every corner of their souls. The voice spoke one last time, no longer cold, no longer distant, but warm, almost proud. Then we are bound. From this moment, humanity carries the legacy of the first ones. Guard it well. And as the light wrapped around them, lifting them in weightless embrace, the humans knew that their lives had changed forever, and that the galaxy itself would never again be the same. The humans floated in the blinding light as the core of the ship bound itself to them, its energy flowing through their minds and hearts like a river of fire and stars. Each of them felt it, the weight of knowledge pressing at the edge of their thoughts, a vast ocean of secrets held back by a wall of responsibility. They knew now that this ship was not a weapon to be commanded, but a living legacy that had chosen them as partners. Slowly the light faded, and the chamber grew calm again, the walls glowing softly as if the ship itself was breathing with relief. The captain lowered his head, feeling the pulse of the vessel inside his very chest, and he understood that from this moment forward humanity was forever linked to something greater than themselves. The crew looked at one another, their faces pale but their eyes wide with awe. Some were frightened, others filled with wonder, but all of them knew there was no going back. The voice of the ship returned, quiet now, almost like a whisper. The bond is complete. But the final choice remains. You may claim me fully, and I will follow you into the stars, or you may leave me here and walk away, carrying only the memory of this meeting. Choose carefully, for the path you take will shape not only your kind but all who live in this galaxy. The captain's heart pounded as the words settled into the air. Around him his crew began to speak. The soldier clenched his fists and said, "If we take this ship, every empire will see us as a threat. They will come for us, and there will be war. Humanity might not survive." The engineer shook her head, her voice firm. "But if we leave it here, then one day another race will come, one who might not show mercy, one who might not care for life. Then the galaxy will fall into darkness. We cannot take that chance." Another crew member whispered, "This ship could make us the most powerful species in history. But it could also destroy us if we forget why we were chosen." The chamber grew still as all eyes turned to the captain. He stood quietly, his hand resting against the glowing wall, feeling the heartbeat of the living vessel. He remembered every trial they had faced, the reflections of truth, the choice of mercy, the prisoners who had been illusions yet revealed their hearts. He knew the answer, and though it weighed heavily on him, he spoke with a steady voice. "We will take this ship, but not for conquest, not for pride, and not for fear. We will take it to protect, to explore, to learn, and to keep it from falling into hands that would twist it into a weapon. If humanity is to be tested, let it be with this responsibility." The core pulsed once, brighter than before, and the ship's voice filled them all with a final judgment. Then it is done. From this moment you are not my masters, but my companions. Together we will travel, together we will guard, together we will shape the future." The walls blazed with radiant light and the chamber dissolved around them, leaving the humans standing once more in their shuttle. Outside, the massive doors of the alien vessel opened wide, and for the first time in history the great ship stirred from its endless slumber. Across the galaxy, alien watchers gasped as sensors reported the impossible. The Silent Sentinel, the ship that refused all life, was moving, its vast engines roaring to life like thunder rolling across the stars. And it was moving under human command. The captain stood at the viewport of his shuttle as the living starship aligned itself with them, its form gleaming with new light, no longer a dead monument but a guardian awakened. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "We are chosen." His crew stood beside him, their fear tempered by pride, knowing that they had become part of something far larger than their own lives. And far away, in the hidden halls of alien empires, leaders trembled. Some whispered of war, others of fear, and some of hope. For they all knew the truth: the balance of power had changed forever. Humanity, the young and underestimated race, had been chosen where all others had failed. The ship that rejected every alien had finally found its companions, and together they would step into a future unknown. The final words of the ship echoed in their minds as the stars stretched before them. "Guard well, humans. For the galaxy will test you as I have tested you. And the true trial has only just begun."